The next few weeks at Texx Talks are all about our best charm and sponsor, Fuck Off Lager. What better way to cleanse yourself of the week that was than participating in Fuck Off Fridays? Head on over to any participating bar and restaurant, buy 2 Fuck Off Lagers for $70 and drop your slip in the venue's box. And you could stand a chance to win some pretty fucking lacquer prizes. Over the next 2 weeks, we are going to be giving away tickets to some pretty amazing shows, so keep your eyes on our socials for more info. This week, though, we are going to be giving away 4 sets, yes, 4 sets of double tickets to catch the Fuck Off Politica Unplugged live stream on Sunday the 29th of November. Simply head over to Texx and the City's socials and tag the friend you want to watch the live stream with, and remember to tag at Fuck Off Lager. Easy. Winners will be announced on our socials Wednesday the 25th of November, so stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Texx Talks. I am Texx, and today I am talking to a bassist, composer, and producer with an affinity for all kinds of genres and mediums. Gravitating towards the bass as his instrument of choice, while simultaneously making beats under his moniker of Card on Spokes, he established 2 fruitful musical careers that he moves seamlessly in between. And when lockdown hit, he sprung into action and executed one of the most thorough and thoughtfully put together release schedules I've seen all year. As part of the new wave of jazz artists pushing the genre forward in South Africa, his work is melodically rich and colorful and shines a bright light on the immense talent that we have in this country. I am, of course, talking about Shane Cooper. Shane, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Tekla, thanks so much for having me. Very good. How are you?
I'm good. We were talking before we started recording about the massive thunderstorm that we're currently having in Joburg. And I mean, as a born and bred Cape Townian, I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to them. They're crazy.
I know, absolutely. I mean, I was born and raised in PE, then lived in Cape Town for a long time, and I'm still getting used to them. Every time they come in hard and close, it gives me a skrik. And like, I always crap myself if I'm in the studio and working that it's going to blast my computer and I'm going to lose shit. So I often end up like saving furiously and backing up and then shutting down for a while until it's sort of calm. But yeah, I'm getting used to it. I remember a few years ago, I was driving from Joburg to Cape Town, and I was driving at night, like just a stretch of it, I think. And I was in the Northern Cape, and this huge storm hit. And right then, I was playing Felix Leban's Dark Days Exit album, and that track came on. I think it's like at the end of the album, and it's just got this kid's voice, or it's like a girl's voice going, "I don't want to die tonight." I don't want to die tonight. And that just like rang in my head throughout the rest of that drive.
That's so creepy. So let's take things back to just before the world shut down. You had just spent 2 weeks at Jazz Vac Starten in Switzerland, where you've been a guest co-curator for the last 3 years. And then you rushed back to Woordfees here in South Africa, in Stellenbosch. And then you basically had to go straight into isolation before the rest of the country went into lockdown. Like, what's going through your mind as you realize your career is basically being forced to a standstill?
Yeah, it was pretty intense. I mean, when I was in Switzerland at that festival, Jazz Werkstatt, we already had, I think, 3 artists on the lineup who had to be cancelled like within a few days before the opening night because they had just traveled through either parts of like northern Italy or other areas from the neighboring countries that were hit really hard just before stuff really started ramping up all over the world. And so there were these government protocols coming in there, and we had to like replace these guys last minute, and it was really tough on them. On the festival, it was wild, but we had to follow the protocol. And even like while the festival was going on, we had to monitor all these updates from the Swiss government every day, not knowing if we'd have to suddenly shut down like last minute. So I was already kind of inside this madness on that side, but didn't really have any sense of what was to come, of course. And I remember the guys saying, you know, do you think you'll also start to get any of these measures in place in SA, and I really didn't foresee it happening, but I'm no expert at all. Got back, did Vert Fierce, and then just after that, I came back to Josie, and Cyril did the big address, and it was if you had been to any of these countries, they listed the countries, then you had to go into self-isolation straight away. And I'd been, I think Switzerland was on there, but pretty much everyone at the festival had come from those places, like they originated from parts of those places. So it was like Italy, Austria, Germany, places like that. So I had to get tested and go into self-isolation, and simultaneously, just the year's worth of festivals and or tours were getting cancelled, like within a few weeks. 6 months of touring and gigging and stuff was shut down. So it was pretty intense, and as I say, like I had some sense of, I guess the severity of the situation over there, but I really didn't foresee it, unfolding the way it did. And as soon as it did, it sort of it went from zero to like sixth gear within a few days, and I lost all that work. So I decided straight away, like, to just go into problem solving mode, and not get like depressed about it,
Exactly. But you were incredibly resourceful. I think you were one of the first musicians to get on that hustle towards generating income to get you through lockdown. And like I said in the intro, I mean, you really have done the most. I mean, it was your Small Songs for Big Times Volume 1, which you completed in 18 hours, which is insane. Then your quarantine collabs, where like dancers from all over the world would interpret your compositions. Then your Learn to Levitate video, which we featured, which was amazing. And then Small Songs for Big Times Volume 2. Like, Shane, have you ever been busier in your life?
Oh, man, it was wild, because when I think back, I mean, I think for all of us, when we think back to those first couple months of like super intense lockdown, it feels like a lifetime ago. But at the same time, the other day, like so much, we've had so much to go through, but I think for me it was twofold. Like I had to lean into it to obviously find ways to like recoup money that I lost from these tours, and a lot of things that had actually a lot of administrative work had gone into these tours and stuff like that you only get paid for once you finished it. So it's not only about like losing things that are coming, it's about also not getting paid for stuff you've done. And then so it was twofold in that I was leaning into stuff and finding solutions to try to recoup money lost, but also just like mentally stay sane and not lose my shit. And music has always been, I guess, a place of solace for me, and a place of, just centering myself. And, there's the music business, but then there's music, and the music part is really just a pure, beautiful, joyful thing. The same thing that led me to it as a kid, So just having that and being able to make music at home was a gift. And I speak for, I think a lot of people who maybe were creatives couldn't do stuff at home because of what, like whatever, medium or discipline they were involved in. I was fortunate enough to have, my home studio set up so I could get in there every day and just create and find ways to like cope with the chaos and the madness. And but it was busy. I just kind of leaned into it and just said, okay, if I'm gonna survive this and actually like be able to pay the bills and stuff, I better just like work my ass off, because also everyone was losing work outside of music as well. People were losing jobs, people were unsure of stuff. So when you're coming up online with like content, trying to sell albums, you're not necessarily on a priority list, Yeah.
100%. Well, I mean, when we started Texx Talks, we launched it in March, but we'd recorded it a few months prior, obviously, when there was no lockdown, and we did it in studio. And I had the luxury of being able to, see the person who I was interviewing and talk to them.
Right.
And then when lockdown hit and the podcast started doing well, we were like, oh my God, what are we going to do for season 2? So, we exactly what you said now, we had to adapt. But thankfully, Tom's came on board and they gave us all the gear. And now this is the quote unquote new norm. This is how we record. You're in Joburg and I'm in Joburg, but, you're sitting in your studio and I'm sitting in my lounge. And that's how we're going to run things for the foreseeable future. But this desire to like keep busy and keep moving. I mean, is this what an average day looks like for you?
Yeah, it does. I mean, for me, like music is still very much, I try to keep it, I try to keep my intention behind music, like innocent in a way. Like I think a lot of the business side of the music industry can weigh down on one after years, and there's a lot of struggle that comes with that. But if you're able as an artist to like return to your craft and just like focus on the things that draw you to it, that has the things that have nothing to do with, you know, money or any of those aspects. It's just about you and your instrument or your voice or your pen or whatever it is. Then all the other sort of troubles in life slip away, and you can get into that. And so for me, every day, I think I've been thinking about this a lot. Is one of the things that I was like actively doing in terms of intention and like a practice of intention in this time was kind of priming myself always, so that as no matter how hardcore or uncertain everything in the world felt, because there was it was just like that. It was just a barrage of uncertainty and intensity for everyone. And sometimes I'd have to just like not be on Twitter or not be on the news because it was just too much for my human soul to handle, you know? So sometimes one has to just like disengage, I guess. But a lot of it was like fine tuning the art of priming myself for that creative space, so that I can just switch off and not be half foot in admin, half foot in like, you know, home stuff, half foot in this. Like when I'm working on the craft, when I'm working on music, I'm just there and I'm 100% committed to it and in the zone, and then I can achieve more in short amounts of time. So it's been a great way to kind of, I guess, sharpen that thing, which I think anyone, you know, everyone's trying to do that who's trying to be better at whatever they do in life, you know, is focus their intention and their presence and things like that. So I guess I've made some progress in that way, and it was something I was trying to do prior to 2020 through some hard years previously and stuff, and learning more about myself, and I guess like just trying to get better at being me, you know. So every day, as much as possible, I try to get into the studio and get creative, you know, whether that's working on something that has a definite destination, if it's an album that I know, you know, is with these artists collaboratively, or a solo thing. Maybe it's got a specific kind of release date in mind, or it's more open-ended until we find what we're trying to find. But I try to get in studio every day and create something and do a little bit of play that's just not attached to anything serious, and a little bit of something that is attached to a real project that has a name and has an intention and stuff like that. And just keep it fluid, keep it flowing. As soon as I get bored of something, I move on to a different thing. And fortunately, I'm lucky enough to work in different genres and stuff like that. So if I'm getting bored of playing something and exactly to acoustic or whatever, I'll jump into the electronics space and work on stuff on the computer with synths and things like that. And just keep it fresh and inspired. And if I'm not feeling up for it, I just won't do it, because there's no point in trying to make, you know, I don't know, beautiful creative stuff if you're just feeling depressed or down. Like I'd rather just go chill and watch a movie or something, you know?
Yeah, actually, that was, you pretty much answered the next question I wanted to ask you, because you know, music for a lot of people who or for people in general is an escape. It's a therapy. But if you are a musician or you do work in the music industry, and music is, you know, your 24/7, your all day, every day, you know, for me, like I can only speak from personal experience. Sometimes I go home. Well, I'm here all day, every day. but you know, when I was, you know, before lockdown, I would come home, and you know, sometimes listening to music would be the last thing that I would want to do. So I wanted to ask you, like, how you would unplug if you are trying to move away from music, how you would unplug and how you would de-stress. But you said chill and watch a movie. But is there anything else?
Definitely. I mean, for me, like just getting into some kind of nature, like I can't claim to be like a mega hiker or something like that, but just, I mean, I love to walk at Emmarentia Dam and places like that. So of course there was a long period of lockdown where we couldn't do that. And then, you know, you could for like 3 hours in the morning and stuff. So I was just walking in my neighborhood, but just trying to get away from a computer screen, get away from a cell phone, get away from anything plugged in. Yeah. And just reset. Because I also spend long hours with headphones on if I'm mixing late at night, to not disturb neighbors. And like I can get I started to get really bad ear fatigue, which I've had prior to this. And a lot of my mates who do like very regular mixing of albums and stuff, they've had issues with that and constantly upgrading their gear to like better suit that kind of those long hours. But I was working so many late nights with headphones on that I was waking up in the morning with like severe ear fatigue. And anyone who spoke to me in person, I had to ask them to whisper because it was so hard on my ears. So
Oh, wow.
I was as much as possible just trying to get away from any sound generating stuff. So that meant at that time it wasn't even movies because I just didn't want to hear anything. The birds were about as much as I could hear, or the wind or whatever. So that sort of thing. But yeah, generally just anything, just chilling, just getting away from music. But I do, also sometimes music is the respite, even if I am working on stuff. And I'll deliberately listen to something that's in a very different genre. Like if I've been working on jazz all day, then I'll just go listen to Tame Impala, and it is still a relaxation for me. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And that's a great album as well, the latest one that they released.
Oof, so good.
I know, so good. But when we interviewed you earlier this year, you said that to stay relevant as a South African artist on an international level, you have to work like 6 months in advance. And now with another wave of COVID that's forcing a lot of European countries back into lockdown, are you able to book any international work at all?
Yeah, so it was crazy because there's this one, that festival, that same festival that we started this conversation on, Jazz Werkstatt. I was going to go back there next year, not as a co-curator, but just to play. They gave me carte blanche to present a set, and I was putting together something really special for that. And we made a call a couple of weeks ago to can it because of the uncertainty. There's all these great musicians. It was like a 10-piece band. So it would be booking all these guys who would dedicate that period for rehearsing and doing the show. And then I would be putting them at risk if suddenly I wasn't able to come, or, I wouldn't be able to afford to go and do like a week quarantine there myself at, in a hotel or something. So we just realized with all the uncertainty to postpone it another year until 2022. So that was on. And whenever I go to Europe for something specific, I capitalize on the time and try to book a bunch of stuff with different projects and collaborative things. So, I didn't invest time investigating that. So we left that. And there's now a theater show that I wrote music for a few years ago that's been invited to France in the middle of next year. I won't talk about it too much, but we'll see. We're holding thumbs, but who knows? But yeah, besides that, like I'm just not, I'm constantly updating. I've got this list of like international venues and festivals that kind of suit the sort of music I'm involved in. And I'm always updating that list and looking at artists that I sort of align myself with and seeing where they play and where they tour to, and sort of trying to set my trajectories on those paths. And I had a whole bunch of stuff mapped out from, I guess, like the beginning of the year where I was looking towards next year. And I'm just like, I haven't even opened that folder since, I don't know, April or something, because I just realized as time's gone on, there's no point in investing the energy in it. And I'm okay with that. For me, I guess the space I'm in creatively now is I'm really enjoying being in the studio a lot and creating. And so I'm just looking forward to 2021 as an extension of 2020 in terms of that process, and hopefully shows locally. But I think if I stress myself out about trying to get opportunities in Europe, I'm just setting myself up for pain, so there's no point. And I'm comfortable with that. I'd rather just let things play out and see what happens. Because it's a lot of admin as well. So if I'm that uncertain, it's not really worth dipping my toes in that water yet. And it's almost like rather plan hard and get even more robust with, I guess, what I'd like to do for 2022 in terms of like Europe,
100%, 100%. But I think to look on the positive side, I think that lockdown proved the advantages of being a DIY muso like you, and from playing like bass to building your own synths to producing your own music and editing your own videos. Like you do everything. And other than creating music, I want to know what are some of the services that you offered during lockdown but still offer now? Because I remember reading somewhere that you offered online tutoring.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking because I remember seeing someone had posted you could pay like $100 to have a llama join your Zoom meeting.
Oh my God.
But I did so many weird different things. Like I did a birthday song for a friend of mine. He's a promoter in Amsterdam. I did a birthday song for his girlfriend. And that was like a commission to kind of take something that I'd created just loosely in lockdown and posted a video of. He liked that and wanted like an extended like fuller version. So I did that for her, and it was just a secret video and a private link, and kind of personalized for her with some text and things like that as well. And I did a lot of tutoring. It was both bass and Ableton production, beat making, mixing, like kind of hybrid thing.
Shane, do you do enough stuff though? Like,
oh man, and yeah. And I'm trying to think what else. Random stuff. I did a couple performances for like events, like Zoom events or whatever, that people put together, like companies, I guess corporate events or whatever. So things like that, where I performed with a mate of mine. We played like music, but it was pretty tricky. Just the tech thing. I don't know. I haven't quite cracked that one perfectly, but people liked it. And obviously did a bunch of live streams from home, which were fun, really fun. I got probably too drunk on most of them, but it was fun. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, just random things. I offered a bunch of things online, and I was just like ready to go. I think I did some audio editing for people here and there as well, stuff that is not really like published or whatever under my name or whatever. But yeah, just anything related to like audio, I was willing to do.
So one of the other things I wanted to talk about was your Bandcamp launched their Bandcamp Fridays, where they waived their cut of revenues on all sales that artists made on certain Fridays. And you created a lot of content specifically for that reason. Was this a profitable move?
The Bandcamp Fridays actually work pretty well on the Fridays. So there's so much momentum behind that day. Like all the artists that got behind it and put out releases specifically for it was sharing constantly on their social media. So there was this huge spread. And then a lot of really big name artists would ask for more indie artists to go and put their links on like a Twitter thread, and they'd share it. And a lot of them, I had like really famous people that I admire end up buying my albums because of that, and paying like considerably large extra sums of donation, like paying way more than the album was for sale for, kind of thing. Like some really reputable artists. I won't mention their names, but it kind of blew me away how much momentum there was behind Bandcamp Fridays from the artists, from the audience, from Bandcamp itself. And it just felt like the kind of measures that I think every streaming platform should have taken in these times. So those initial Fridays were actually overwhelmingly good in terms of like the turnout of people buying and paying extra for merchandise and things like that. But the graph would quite dramatically dip after the Fridays and just like level out like a few days with some extra stuff, and they just kind of level out for the rest of the month and then pick up again for the next Bandcamp Friday. So I got behind a few, new releases specifically made for those, and each time I put a new one out, the previous ones would do well again on the Fridays. So I quickly realized there wasn't much need to like push in the weeks in between, because you were kind of, you were wasting your breath, and then just wait for the next ones. I've chilled out for a few months now, not done anymore, just to give other people, more of the airtime, I guess. But I was very impressed, to be honest, because like streaming itself is very challenging to make decent revenue. But with Bandcamp, it's such a beautiful platform where buying of music is encouraged, and people, you can charge what you want. And I like the fact that you can, as a creator, you can charge what you want, because like I could go and make like a minimal sleep song now in 10 minutes, and I could also go record like a band for a month on another song, and I feel like I would price those differently. Do you know what I mean? Even though I think they're both nice, they're both worth selling or whatever, I would price the one that cost me $100,000 a little bit higher than the one that took me 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So I feel that model's really good in terms of like just addressing some of the difficulties behind the creativity and the costs that come with putting together recordings these days. But Bandcamp's amazing. I've got so much love for those guys, and just as a kind of organization, when you reach out to them, and I've spoken to them about various things directly, and they're incredible, really amazing. Yeah.
So you've actually spoken to somebody from Bandcamp, which is amazing, because a lot of these streaming services, if you've got a problem and your music doesn't show up, and you want to speak to somebody, there's nobody to talk to. Like, there's no one to talk to at your aggregator, or there's no one to talk to at Spotify. It's all very like hush hush. There are no clear contact details. So that's cool that it sounds like Bandcamp is transparent.
It's very transparent. It feels like the kind of thing that is, it's as corny as it is, but it just feels like it's for musicians. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just for profit kind of thing. It feels like it's, and I've read interviews with, I think it was like the founder or something, and just the way he speaks about why he started it and what he saw was needed online, in terms of a platform for selling music and stuff like that. And it ticks a lot of boxes for me.
But I would say sort of at a higher level, our objective is to be the best way for fans to directly support the artists that they love.
The more and more content I create, the more I realize what is needed. You don't know until you kind of hit hurdles what those issues are. So I feel like Bandcamp's constantly evolving in a way that is like in tandem with artists and the difficulty and the nuance and the way the evolution is unfolding of the music business and the way people interact with music as consumers. It's always evolving. I love streaming. I stream music myself, and I buy music too, and I buy records too. So I guess I'm, a little bit of each, but I think it's important that an organization like that is super engaged with artists and on their side first. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, Bandcamp aside, because as far as I know, you were one of the first South African artists to jump on Bandcamp Fridays, but you were also one of the first South African artists to start driving people to become patrons on your Patreon account. And I mean, let's be honest, like South Africa is leagues behind this paying for music concept. So in the spirit of normalizing the Patreon culture, tell us how this works. Like, how much content do you have to generate and how regularly? And like, is this something that you would recommend to younger musos to explore?
I think, Patreon, mine started out pretty good actually, because I had a few packages on there that were a little bit more expensive, but they offered Zoom lessons mixed in with all the content that I was posting exclusively and stuff like that. But then I got busy with a couple of projects, so I wasn't able to teach anymore. So I had to get those people to all downgrade or whatever. So it's kind of in a bit of a low point at the moment in terms of what it's earning, but I've got a lot of content on there and I continually update. I keep it quite light-footed just because I know, like some of the artists I follow from the States and stuff who've dedicated an immense amount of time to their Patreon accounts. Like, it's almost as if they spend a part of their working week is just dedicated to Patreon. Do you know what I mean? Creating really good video content that's edited. It's not just like behind the scenes, one take. It's edited. It's got a voiceover. It's got all the stuff. So there's a point where you have to decide, are you going to go that far in? And if you do, you're going to take a bit of a risk because it might take some months to actually build up that audience. And you really need to like grow your audience far beyond what you already have and encourage people from overseas to come on board. Otherwise, eventually you're going to lose steam and not want to edit all these videos and things. So mine's a lot more light-footed. Most of the videos are like not edited. They're really behind the scenes. I set up a cam and I shoot and I talk and I play and whatever it is, and then I push stop and I load it. But there's also stuff that's specifically like behind the scenes of track production where I shoot it in OBS and I'm shooting myself inside a project file or a project session from a track I produced and like just showing layers and stuff. And that's just using my webcam and a screen share basically. So just going in like that. And it's been pretty fun. But for me, even when I feel like, oh God, I don't really have time for this, I just try to chip away at it so that I'm building up content. And maybe even in like 3 years, it'll suddenly grow because there's this huge library of content. And I know that like that also is a way that some people use it. They'll come and subscribe to someone for a month, get access to a ton of content because they have time, look at it, watch the videos, engage with the stuff, and then bail out to save cash, So that's also an option. So you can't expect it to constantly just be this huge stream of money. And I see a few people from South Africa, like I think Lucy Kruger's on there now. I think I saw she was doing stuff. So I really want to check out hers. But it's I was saying to a friend of mine the other day, because he was considering it, and I was like, I wouldn't really recommend it at this point unless you're going to put in tons and tons and tons and tons of hours. because you have to kind of build it up. And it's like, if you're going to charge someone the same as what they pay for Netflix, you better have a crap ton of content on there, you know, or really they have to be like a super fan. So I'm not at like a super famous level, so I can't expect to have 100,000 rands worth of subscribers there every month, but it feels like something I can slowly build and just have there. And if we get to another point where gigs are cut like dramatically again, and we're almost at the same place in terms of entertainment work as we were 6 months ago, then I'll lean into that a bit more, being at home more and just deliver more content, you know?
I feel like you need to be spreading the gospel of Patreon so much more, or at least like I do now that I know about it, because it just sounds so flexible, and it sounds like it gives musicians so many different kinds of options, or just a whole bunch of different kinds of creatives.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what's nice is like there's a few people I follow from overseas who I've also gone and just subscribed to for a month here and there, because they're doing amazing behind the scenes stuff of like writing a song or track production or whatever. And these are guys that I genuinely admire and I guess am influenced by, you know what I mean? So that's what's so beautiful about the internet, is that we get all these very personal, direct connections to people when they tweet and things like that. But this is rad to have that content, and the setup and the layout of it is amazing, and it's super easy for guys to just constantly update and have videos and have amazing things. So it is kind of, in a way, it is like having it's a subscription service to creators to let them do whatever they want, even if it's just like random thoughts from the morning, you know?
100%. So talk to me about, I mean, you know, I keep a very close eye on your social media, and you're driving people to Bandcamp Fridays, you're driving people to Patreon, you're driving people to sign up to a YouTube channel, tune in for live streams, apply for mentorships, like all of that. But I mean, you know, when like social media becomes a job, do you know what I mean? Do you enjoy it, or are there times where things have become a bit too monotonous for you and you've just had to like unplug?
There have been times for sure. And certainly in some of the most intense periods this year, that was definitely the feeling, but it was compounded by the fact that like there were extreme points where the whole world was on fire, you know, and so you open Twitter to like post something about your upcoming release and the whole world's burning, and you're just like, Jesus, this is super tone deaf or insensitive or whatever for me to post something now, and I just need to like switch off and maybe not even put out this album on Friday, because I just feel kind of insensitive sharing that when there are more important things to speak about. So it is strange, I guess, social media, because you have this kind of, it feels like walking into a club and there's no music, just like a lot of people shouting, and and sometimes you need to kind of read the room and just not say what you wanted to say. I don't know. So there've been points where I was just burnt out from obsessively having to share content, I guess, and like share links and things like that, and just feeling like I don't know, just like, okay, I actually just want to go camping for a month and like just drink whiskey under the stars and not have internet connection. Do you know what I mean?
But I can't leave my house because it's locked on level 5.
Exactly. So there were absolute points of, this is just so irritating. I don't do any of this shit. And then it did feel like, okay, I'm literally just, I'm being a digital salesman, and I just have to get through it. But I think any artist who, which is most artists, they control their own social media pages, or at least their Twitters. Like, you want your posts to be personalized. You wouldn't like want it to be, I don't know, rote or generic or anything like that. And I can't make a personalized message if I'm feeling like shit. You know what I mean? So I just skip it and come back later. Yeah. Or sometimes I vented on stories. Do you know what I mean? Because it would be deleted in 24 hours.
Oh yes, no. Or you can just save it and like put it as a highlight. I'm having a bad week. This is why I'm not on social. Go look at my highlight. But I mean, one of the things I've been saying since we started talking was like how busy you are and how busy you've kept yourself during lockdown. But I mean, from a performance perspective in all of the bands that you play in, I mean, there's Mabuta and there's Skyjack and then obviously Card on Spokes. But I feel like jazz, because of its complexity, it allows you to move between genres, with a bit more ease. Talk to me about your relationship with jazz and what it was that drew you specifically to that genre.
I think it just comes from like, when I started playing bass, I was in school. I was 14 years old, and I came from mostly like listening to grunge music and Sublime and hip hop, Beastie Boys, and a lot of electronic music and just stuff like that. But I picked up the bass, and I was attracted to a lot of funk. I was attracted to Flea's bass playing. I was attracted to Stuart Zender from the first Jamiroquai records, and I was attracted to Sly and the Family Stone, and so like a lot of really groove heavy funk centric or like bass centric funk music kind of pulled me away from a very kind of rock focused world in terms of like guitar music. And that space of, I've been reading Flea's autobiography lately, which is it's just so beautiful, and there's so many things I relate to in there, like with his connection to music, and I've always admired his like vulnerability in public, whether it's on stage or online or whatever. Like he just exposes himself and he opens himself up like wholeheartedly, and I love that, and he does it in music. And the stuff that really attracted me to bass was just connecting with drums, and it was like this kind of marriage of groove and like a kind of world where the body was just pulsating through the bass in tandem with the drums in this beautiful kind of primal, visceral, just like, I don't know, lose your mind through your body thing, So that's always been a starting point for me with bass, regardless of what I'm playing. And I found that because funk music with the brass and the horns and everything, they're all connected to jazz, they're all connected to blues. So, they all stem from the roots of similar roots. And I found that in jazz through like 70s funk and fusion funk and things like that kind of pulled me back. And eventually I discovered that double bass, and I went back to, I guess, earlier musicians like Miles Davis and John Coltrane and stuff. But inherently, it's always just, for me, it's actually always just been about the place that I get to occupy on stage in terms of like the function of the bass and its purpose amongst the musicians on stage, providing this bedrock, providing this groove, being the foundation of, I don't know, like, of the house, so to speak, It's just always felt right for me. And I think when I was growing up, that was it. Like I wanted to be in the back, but be in the engine, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing. And jazz has this incredible sense of groove. It's got an incredible, the bass has an incredible kind of place in it, and double bass is phenomenal. So regardless of which projects I've played in over the years, whether it's something that's maybe a little bit more rooted in like an acoustic aesthetic, or something that's maybe like Mabuta that crosses over and brings in African groove musics like Afrobeat and electronic musics as well into the influence. My fundamental like what guides my like spiritual connection to the music is always the same, and it's just that I'm just trying to lose myself in the music, and bass is like my favorite vehicle to do that. And then jazz has this openness that allows you to change things up and kind of have a different take on the same subject matter each night. So you can play the bass line slightly differently each time. And that for me is super exciting. Like I've grown to improvising for me is a huge part of how I write music as well. And how I engage with like the creative process and stuff. So it's just an extension of myself now as improvising. And so having a genre of music that allows that inherently in every performance as well as a recording is very freeing. But it's critical that you play with guys you connect with, because I've played with really great musicians who I don't connect with, and it's shit. It sounds like shit. Maybe it sounds okay, but there's just a spark that's missing. And if there's so much music in the world, what's the point if there's no spark? You know what I mean?
100%. But you mentioned John Coltrane, like one of the forefathers of jazz, and alongside other legends like Miles Davis and Charlie Parker. Like what I know about them and their history, like life was tough for them. Yeah. They were always working, always playing, always recording, which I guess can only mean that like their work ethic and their output was next level. Like, do you feel that through this pandemic, maybe you've developed a greater understanding of being completely dedicated to the craft?
I think, I'll tell you, I mean, if I draw back and just be completely like honest and lay it bare, but it's, in just before the Mabuta record in late 2017, I like almost completely burnt out, and I was exhausted, and just like finished. And I was very close to just giving up, because I'd kind of gotten to this point of I'd lost a lot of I think my perspective on why I was doing music, and in a way I was just burnt out and feeling just exhausted. I was over it. I was done. And it was conflicting, because I still loved music. I didn't want to give it up, but I was worried that if I continued down the path I was on at the time, it was not going to be good for my health, not good for my longevity, not good for my mental health, not good for my physical health, just everything. I was in a bad place, and I was at a crossroads and very close to just throwing in the towel. And I decided to see the album through as a way of either it was going to be a closure and go, that's the last thing I've done, I'm out, or it was going to kind of help me and be like an aid in like finding my feet again. And it was the latter. I did find my feet again. And I found my way back to myself and to my center and why I do music. And after that, really, I was always super dedicated to the craft, I think, from a young age, because I knew going into it the difficulties that a musician does face. I grew up seeing a lot of amazing musicians really not get, what they deserved, I think, in terms of just, they had life so hard. So from a very young age, I knew you have to just graft your ass off if you're gonna, have a chance at this. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll make a lot of money and then things will get easier. But otherwise, you're just gonna have to keep going and just work hard, But as the years progressed, I realized more and more about the importance of work-life balance and like taking care of yourself and taking care of your heart and your soul, so that the music,
very important,
so that the music doesn't get toxic, so that your relationship with music doesn't get toxic. And if you can maintain that, then things can be good, And so at the end of 2017, when I went through that, and I came out the other side, I was like, I have to now actively observe myself, observe how I'm treating myself, how I'm living, how I'm engaging with music, how I'm engaging with the things around it, the business of it, the lifestyle, all of these things, and like just take care, because I don't want to end up there again. And so since then, since 2018, I've been much better at all of that, at being aware and seeing those things creeping over the hill when they come back, those dark horses, and knowing how to I don't know, like redirect myself so that I can get back to myself. So that's been better. So and obviously this year has had a new level of intensity in multiple like areas of life that has, I think, further. So that's what I wanted to say, was there was a point this year at the beginning where I think I had a little I shared a bunch of these thoughts one night on Instagram stories, but it was like I was lying there late one night with insomnia, and I was like, okay, I've been through a worse place, like personally and emotionally, with my with that 2017 period, and I was like, at this point, okay, I don't want to just give up, because I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, it's lockdown level 5. Like, I'm not going to go find another job tomorrow in some industry I've never done. So things are intense. So for now, all I've got is music. And I was just like, okay, I have no idea what the lay of the land is in terms of opportunities going forward for anything, for music, for flipping whatever. So I'm just going to lean in even more, like just go for it with the limited things I have at my disposal at home, being in hardcore lockdown, whatever, resources, blah, blah, blah. And just go for it. And I was like, I know my strength. I know my weakness. I've been through hell. I've been through high water with myself. And at this point, I'm just going to go for it 110%. And we'll see what happens as things play out, if music is even viable in the, quote unquote, new normal. And made it through. But I think for me, if I really look back, it wasn't really 2020 that strengthened that resolve. It was that shit I went through at the end of 2017. Yeah.
So let's bring things back to the present, right? You've been working on this project called Dimension Radio with Bokani Daya and Zoe Modiga, who I'm obsessed with. And the concept is basically 3-dimensional radio, right? Okay, so this is a 2-part question. So first I want to know what is, and this one's for the musical geeks who are listening, because I know there are a few. Tell us about the gear that you're using for this project.
Yeah. Okay. So just a disclaimer: this project's in process now and constantly evolving, and it's in many ways I threw a lot of very challenging factors together into one big bunch. So some of the stuff I'm intending to do, I have no idea if it's going to work yet, but I'm just going for it. So the starting point is this is all being recorded through a Nagra tape machine from the early 70s, which is it was the industry standard for a lot of field recording for films and picture and stuff like that, where guys were recording out, in nature, outdoors and things like that. So it's really got an amazing quality. The microphones through it sound phenomenal. Tape, for those who don't know, like proper 1/4-inch tape, I don't mean the cassette tapes, like it's got a phenomenal sound. I mean, they're cousins to the cassette tapes. It's got a phenomenal sound. It's got a warmth. It just sounds super beautiful. But at the same time, there's a limitation because you don't have all the perks you have with digital, infinite redos, or like perfect, accurate redos and stuff where you can just go over and over and looking at the screen, choosing a spot. It's got 2 mic inputs. That's it. Versus, 16 or 32 or whatever you want. And I have a limited supply of tape, which is also old stock. It's about 20 years old, the tape. So before I started this project, I didn't know. I tested some of the tape, but you don't want to record over all of it to test it, because each time you record, it can slowly, it takes its toll on the lifespan of the tape. So there were all these factors that were unknown. I've only started working with the machine earlier this year in lockdown, so I was doing everything alone. I hadn't worked with other musicians yet with it, and trying to just get super fluid with it and things like that, and almost play it like an instrument, because you constantly are tweaking the dials and stuff to get the best sound. But it's very dynamic. It can build up magnetic charge that can make you lose signal. The tape slowly sort of degrades as you're going through, and then you got to stop and you got to clean the machine with like 99% alcohol and all these things. So it's a very physical activity. It requires a lot of patience, but a lot of intention. And it's been amazing to work with something that doesn't also have emails and social media on it. It's just that. Do you know what I mean? Basically, there are 3 episodes. The one is called Static, which has Bokani Dai on piano. It has Cara Stacey on like traditional Southern African instruments, the mouth bow, the various forms of mbiras and stuff like that. It has Daliwonga Changela on cello. Then there's another episode called Tongues, which is just vocal artists. It's Zoe Modiga, it's Akile Moleshe, it's Anne Messina. Very experimental kind of sounds with the mouth and with the tongues and things like that. And then the other episode, the 3rd episode, is called Skins. And that is just, it's either drum instruments. So it's a lot of, I've got Mika Manganye on percussion, Jono Sweetman on drums, and Khonsi Makene on percussion, who people might know from the Shabaka and the Ancestors. And they're playing instruments with skins, either real or synthetic, so drums, or body percussion. So there's stuff where we're playing our bodies and our chests and our mouths and arms and stuff like that. Or making those weird popping sounds with your cheeks when you flick them, like we did when we were kids and stuff. And I'm also playing various instruments on all of these episodes. Like on the Skins one, I'm playing double bass because you can hear my skin on the strings. So that's what I'm working on right now,
Okay, so how is this rolling out, and where can people go and listen to this?
So it's going to launch. The first episode will launch on the 25th of November, which is a Wednesday. It's in 2 weeks' time. And it's going to be on everything that we're used to social media wise. It'll be on the Center for the Less Good Idea, all their social media stuff on Instagram. Twitter, Facebook, and so on their YouTube as well. For those that don't know, the Center for the Less Good Idea is an amazing art space created by William Kentridge and Bronwyn Lace, which you have to check out regardless of this that I'm doing. Amazing stuff that they've been doing during lockdown as well. They're currently occupying billboards and stuff around the city of Joburg. So it's going to be on their social media, and I'm currently working with them on setting up their own like Spotify and Apple Music accounts as well. So it will be on all your usual streaming spaces. So the first episode is going to launch on the 25th of November, the Wednesday, and then each subsequent episode will be each Wednesday following that, all the way into like, I think the third week of December. And there's a fourth episode, which is actually really its own. It's not part of that triptych, so to speak. And it's with this amazing ecological artist, Zayan Khan from Cape Town, who works with fermentation, indigenous plants, food, all sorts of fascinating things. You got to check out on Instagram. And we collabed on this thing that's part like, it's like part audiobook, part sound walk, part podcast, part, what would you call it? Radio drama, things like that. So I followed her around with a bunch of portable microphones and recorded her like harvesting plants in the flay, in the kelp in the ocean, stuff on the mountain. With these beautiful microphones, recorded her like chopping them and talking about them. So she was just flowing with it, finding whatever was in flower then. This was a couple months ago. And then waxing lyrical about these plants, about recipes, about memories from her childhood, recipes she knew growing up from her grandparents. And then we recorded a bunch of things in studio with her speaking in a voiceover booth. So her mic's beautiful. And then stuff in her kitchen as well, where she's preparing these recipes. And so we're working on the post-production right now where we're layering all this stuff. So it's basically like somewhere between a radio drama and an audiobook in a way. And a lot of it is around, it's around like beautiful memories. It's fascinating recipes, stories, culture, socio-political subject matter, all sorts of fascinating stuff that's like interwoven and pulls you in different directions, but quite cohesive. So we're grafting on that now. And that's really independent to the other three, but I wanted to do something with her, and she's phenomenal, amazing artist. And it was incredible to have, like, we rented these really good microphones. It was incredible to have the opportunity to mic up some of the stuff that she does super vividly. So you hear like these fermentations bubbling like you're inside the soda, you know? And I don't know, it was really fun. It feels like an animation of sound, you know?
Shane, this is why I love talking to you, because you give me so much food for thought. And now I have so many people that I have to go check out on Instagram. And you've basically given me like the best homework. It's so great. And I continue to be in awe of like your work ethic and the quality of your music. And it's just been an honor to sneak a peek inside that busy brain. Please promise me that you'll come back and after Three-Dimensional Radio is released, we can pick it apart. We can talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. And to you as well. I love everything you've been doing with all of your projects, Texx. So thank you for all that you do for the country, the music industry, the culture. I love it.
Oh God, you're going to make me cry on my podcast. What's going on? shout out to Shane Cooper for joining us in studio. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Texx Talks. Be sure to check out textalks.com for more episodes. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, or listen to Texx Talks on all good streaming platforms. Also, a huge shout out to Tom's, the only music store, for being the most incredible technical supplier. From myself, Texx, our producers Jonathan Ings and Matthew Lewitz, and our research assistant Al Clapper. Catch you on the flip side.